Thank you for talking to us. Wade and James, I would like to ask you, first of all, why you have chosen to speak out now.
For me, I couldn't do it any earlier time in my life. I wish that I could have, you know, but there were a series of events in my life, most notably beginning with the birth of my son, which led to 2 nervous breakdowns, the second of which led to me disclosing the abuse from Michael Jackson for the first time in my life. I had been keeping it silent for 22 or so years. Once I began that process of speaking it for the first time and beginning the healing process, at some point in that healing process, this desire arose in me to try and take this horrible thing, this bad thing that happened to me, and do something good with it. So the question for me was, how could I find a way to tell the truth now that I can, and tell my story in a detailed way that would help other survivors feel not so alone, to help other survivors' stories feel validated, and to raise awareness as to how abuse can and does happen.
James, I can see you nodding there. What prompted your decision to speak out?
Sure. I was suffering for many years from symptoms, and I didn't know where they were coming from. And hearing Wade come out made me realize that there was a reason for how I was feeling, and that gave me hope in a sense that if you know what's causing it, then you can begin the path of doing something about it. So that's when I started reaching out to a therapist. And then after talking with a therapist, I really just wanted to talk to Wade because I just wanted to connect with somebody that had been through what I'd been through. And that's what brought me into the court case. And I'm into the court case because I want to fight back for myself and for the little James, because nobody was there to fight for him. And I'm old enough now to fight for him.
My mother and father and sister got in for a sort of group photo with Michael. And then he and I took some shots alone. I was in a full custom Smooth Criminal outfit. We showed him some tapes of dancing performances, things I've been doing over the last 2 years that he wanted to see. I think it was a Friday. And he said, do you and the family, do you guys want to come to Neverland for the weekend?
What did you think about being 2 young boys brought into the private world, the inner sanctum of Michael Jackson?
Yeah, so for me, before I met Michael, I was already an incredibly huge fan of Michael's. I was obsessed with him. My walls were covered in images of Michael. I danced like him. I dressed like him. I had my hair permed and dyed to look like him. I wanted to be him. And then I won a dance competition, and the prize was to meet Michael. And then 2 years later, we met again, and that's when the relationship began and when the abuse began. But before the abuse began, being brought into Michael's world, being this little boy from the other side of the world in Australia, being obsessed with this otherworldly figure, Michael Jackson, and then meeting him, and then becoming his friend, him telling me he loved me, bringing me into his world, into Neverland, which was, a place like no other, especially for a kid like me, was just mind-blowing, heart exploding. It was the most incredible thing that could have ever happened to me, I thought. And then, the experience was became something different than I ever could have imagined.
So we were like this married couple. And I say married because we had this mock wedding ceremony. We did this in his bedroom. And we like filled out some vows. It's like we're bonded forever. It felt good. And the ring is nice. It has a row of diamonds with a gold band. The wedding ring. It's hard to go back to that moment.
James, what was it like for you?
Well, Michael's the biggest star on earth. There were and haven't been stars like that. The whole world is in love with him, and you're 10 years old. And at that age, you're looking for attention yourself. So when the biggest star in the world starts to give you attention and tells you that he loves you and that you're special, then the rest of the world is sort of reinforcing that Michael is amazing because everybody thinks he is. And you're on tour. It's a surreal experience, and it's hard for a 10-year-old to process. The relationship changes over the years. The abuse starts to happen, and then it becomes like a relationship between a couple.
You both talk in the documentary in a very calm, low-key way about some really shocking and upsetting incidents of sexual abuse that you say you were subjected to at the hands of Michael Jackson. I wonder if I could ask you if you would be comfortable talking to our audience about what happened and how old you were and over how many years this went on for.
Yeah, so Michael sexually abused me from the age of 7 years old until 14 years old. And the sexual abuse included fondling, touching my entire body and my penis.
Yeah, I was sexually abused from the age of 10 until around 14, and the abuse was very similar to Wade's. Starts with him teaching you how to masturbate, showing you this new thing that everybody does, and it'll change your life. And you start French kissing. He said I taught him how to do that. And then oral sex starts. He also liked to have his nipples rubbed. Yeah.
He also attempted to penetrate me anally when I was 14. That was one of the last sexual abuse experiences we had.
Could I bring in Dan Reed, the director of the film at this point? Dan, what do you think about the fact that James and Wade have chosen to speak out together in this way?
I mean, part of me is astonished that no one's made this film before, because it's so long since the abuse took place. And I think Jackson had an entire career of, having little boys in his bed, and it seems to me astonishing that only now in 2019 we're really confronting this. I feel incredibly fortunate that Wade and James have spoken out so unflinchingly about what was done to them, and have also unfolded, this is what the film's really about, the whole story of how they and their families came to terms with what had happened to them as little children. And I think this is going to be, it's obviously going to be big news for people who love Michael's music, but I think it's also going to be an amazing inspiration for anyone out there who's been a victim of sexual abuse, or families who've been preyed upon by predatory paedophiles.
You include a lot of archive footage of both James and Wade alongside Michael Jackson, leaving hotels, getting into limos, leaving limos, going to Neverland, and so on. But why do you think no adults at the time ever questioned this, ever thought it was odd or unusual?
I'm astonished. I mean, you know, it is significant that both James and Wade's mums were kind of drawn into this spurious normality. Michael projected an image of childlike innocence and made it kind of appear routine that he should always have a little boy holding his hand, and he spent night after night after night with little boys in his bed, different little boys.
Do you know how many times Michael Jackson abused you?
It's countless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
countless. It's no way to... every time I was with him, every single time I stayed the night with him, he abused me. I think that was the same for James.
I was with him alone for long periods of times over many years, and it was constant.
So that is hundreds and hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You go from a normal lifestyle, day after day, everything's the same, to this big star calling your house, wanting to come to your home and have dinner in your home, wanting to spend the night in your little house. He could be anywhere with anybody in the world, and Michael wanted to be with our family. This was all so overwhelming and like a fairy tale. And I got lost in it. And I know my husband got lost in it too.
Your mums trusted him. Broadly speaking, your families trusted him. Your mums let you sleep in Michael Jackson's bed with him, sometimes when your mum was sleeping next door. Can you describe how Michael Jackson got them to trust him like that?
Well, Michael, there's a long grooming process where Michael, inserts himself into your family and becomes a part of your family, and he grooms the children and he grooms the parents as well. So, it's a meticulous sort of build up for him to be able to do that, and it takes him a while to build the trust. It doesn't happen overnight. So, not letting our parents off or saying that it's not their fault, but I think people need to understand that it just doesn't happen right away. The parents, and he's also a major star, and they know him already as well. So there's years of them feeling comfortable with this star they've seen on TV. And it also kind of shows how, Michael groomed the world as well.
I think most of the time, the sexual abuser is not the scary guy in the van in the alleyway. Of course, that happens sometimes, but I think it's the minority of the case. Most of the time, it's the coach, the teacher, the uncle, the stepfather, the father, the mother, whoever. Somebody who is absolutely trusted, has gained trust of the child first and foremost, and the whole family. And this was the case. Michael made sure from day one that he had, of course, first a really special relationship with me, and then he made sure he had a really special, separate relationship with my mother and with my sister, and not my father. Right from day one, in an unnoticeable at the time way, he started drawing this wedge between myself and my father, my mother and my father. So that he was just a master manipulator. And yeah, I agree, it doesn't let my mother off the hook. My gosh, I wish, especially as a parent now, and of course because of what I've been through, I can't imagine all the red flags not going off for me, and me not ever letting my son, of course now, because I've been through this, ever sleep in any other person's bed that I know even. Yeah, she was also absolutely groomed and manipulated by Michael.
You use the phrase, "that's not to let her off the hook." And in the film, you say you don't really have any feelings for your mum now. Do you believe she bears partial responsibility for what you say happened to you?
Yeah, there absolutely is. There absolutely responsibility at my mother's door. There's no denying that. And, you know, my relationship with my mother, thankfully, is continuing to evolve, and we've been going through a lot of healing together and a lot of honesty and a lot of hard stuff. So that relationship is getting better every day. But there's responsibility at my mother's door. There's responsibility, of course, first and foremost, at Michael's door. There's responsibility at the door of all the other people, all the other employees that were around Michael and me and James all the time that looked the other way.
I think to speak to that too, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, Michael, he makes a wedge between you and your parents, and he isolates you from everybody else. And so, and then at the same time when you're being abused, a part of you is dying. So you not connecting with your mom is all that sort of working together. So it's not that you're blaming and that's why you're disconnected. It's all those different ingredients working together to sort of pull you away from the world, disconnect you from your parents, and you're starting to die emotionally. So I think all that.
One of the most poignant lines in the film is when Wade tells his mother about the abuse, 2 decades later, and she turns to him and she's in floods of tears and she says, "How could you not have told me?" And that's one of the most tragic lines in the film, because Joy, Wade's mum, trusted her son because she had a very close relationship with him to tell her if anything was wrong. And what the predator does is inserts himself into the relationship as a sort of parent figure, as a mentor, and creates a deep attachment with the abuse victim. And that's what people don't understand.
You will know that the Jackson estate have put out a statement in response to your film, denying your claims. I'm going to read it in full. "Michael Jackson is our brother and our son. We are furious that the media, who, without a shred of proof or single piece of physical evidence, chose to believe the word of 2 admitted liars over the word of hundreds of family and friends around the world who spent time with Michael, many at Neverland, and experienced his legendary kindness and global generosity. We are proud of what Michael Jackson stands for. People have always loved to go after Michael. He was an easy target because he was unique. But he was subjected to a thorough investigation, which included a surprise raid of Neverland and other properties, as well as a jury trial, where Michael was found to be completely innocent, and that's in capital letters. There has never been one piece of proof of anything, yet the media is eager to believe these lies. Michael always turned the other cheek, and we have always turned the other cheek when people have gone after members of our family. That's the Jackson way. But we cannot just stand by whilst this public lynching goes on, and the vulture tweeters and others who never met Michael go after him. Michael is not here to defend himself, otherwise these allegations would not have been made. The creators of this film were not interested in the truth. They never interviewed a single solitary soul who knew Michael, except the 2 perjurers and their families. That's not journalism, and it's not fair, yet the media are perpetuating these stories. But the truth is on our side. Go do your research about these opportunists. The facts don't lie, people do. Michael Jackson was and always will be 100% innocent of these false allegations." Wade, you defended Michael Jackson twice, in 1993 when you were 11, and then again in court in 2005 when he was acquitted of sexual abuse charges. Why did you tell the world then that he had done nothing to you?
So from day one of Michael sexually abusing me, he immediately started to tell me and train me on how to lie about what was happening between us. First, he would tell me that what this sexual activity, is because he and I love each other, and this is how we show our love. And then he would immediately follow that up with, but if anybody else in the world ever found out what we were doing, people are ignorant, they wouldn't understand, and what would happen is that you and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives, and our lives would fall apart. He and I would be pulled apart. All of this was terrifying to me. And so, one, of course, the idea of going to jail. Two, the idea of being pulled away from Michael. Now, this man, this otherworldly figure, this God to me, who had now become my best friend. No way was I ever going to do anything that would pull me away from him. And so that training started day one. It continued all the way through years and years and years. And then when the first allegations popped up in '93, I was already ready for it. But as soon as the allegations popped up, Michael, upped his training of me tenfold and was calling every day and would coach me for hours as to what the cops are going to say, how they're going to try and do it, how they're going to try and break you down. They don't have anything. It's all lies. This is what you say. This is what you don't say. Every day. So when the first cop showed up at my house, I was ready. And I was ready to defend Michael and myself, because I was, at that point when I was 11, terrified that I would go to jail also for the rest of my life. Because that's what Michael told me. And anything Michael told me was gospel. So I was ready to defend Michael and myself to the end of the earth. And I did that. And the way Michael taught me to do that was to lie.
But this is the truth now.
This is the truth. That Michael sexually abused me for 7 years. The second case, the criminal trial in 2005, was a similar thing. I was terrified at the idea of people finding out what happened between Michael and I, because Michael always made me believe that I was complicit in it, that I wanted it just as much, if not more, than him. So the idea of people finding this out, I was about to get married at the time, the idea of my wife finding out, I thought, I guess I was a freak too. If that's what people would think Michael was, then I would be a freak too. So maybe my wife would leave me, my career would fall apart, my life would fall apart. And also, I still loved Michael, and I was still ready to do anything I could to protect him.
What has it been like for both of you to talk to each other, to connect with each other?
When it premiered at Sundance, we finally got to spend some time together and connect, and it's indescribable. It's just like you're alone and then you're not alone.
To finally, after whatever it's been, 6 years or so since we started this process with the case, to finally be able to talk, to be together for any length of time. There's just an unspoken, technically we don't know each other that well. We haven't been around each other very much in our lives at all. But it's I know him deeper than I know anybody else in my life, because of what we share, what we unfortunately share, and also what we share in healing, in beginning the healing process.
Yeah, we understand what each other's going through along the process.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you, very much for talking to us. Thank you, gentlemen, and for talking to our audience. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.